Welcome to another edition of Throwing Out Some Heavy Light. My name is Aljamal Bynum. I'm the chair of the board of MORE, which stands for Movement in Omaha for Race Equity. We have a special show tonight, and I'm really excited to be able to host this event so that we can talk about some of the issues that we have not addressed in our popular culture and sometime in our popular media in the community. We have a guest today. His name is Trip Reynolds. He's a community member with extensive background in many areas, such as human resources. He worked in major corporations, and most of us know him from his work that he did at Cox Cable 22 many years ago. As I said, he has a human resources background and also in communication background, and he's developed a web page focused on issues impacting African Americans in the community and obviously in the state. I invited him to talk about his robust library of past editorials and topics that he's shared in the media regarding the challenges that we face as African Americans, and particularly in our community. I initially came in contact with Trip when he was running or in charge of Channel 22 some years ago, that cable program that brought a lot of frank conversations to our community, and it allowed people to talk about various issues without censorship and so on in our community. This program will explore his latest views on Wakanda and its implications dealing with Jewkanda, and there is a symbolism in that, and we must explore some of these issues if we want to transform our community. As Dave Chapell remarked, we must respect the artists and those with creative minds to help us understand reality and avoid white censorship. We will talk about buffoons, institutions, Uncle Toms, the lynchings of African Americans, the empowerment network, religion, and other issues that have been swept under the institutional rug in communities of the oppressed. We hope that you can enjoy this program. And of course, if you want to find out more about Mr. Trip Reynolds' work and so on, you can go to his webpage where he has Trip, we'll have it listed in there, but Trip poetry and so on, and some of his other links related to some of his comments. This will be hopefully, as we call, a controversial program, but also as we said, we'll pull back the sheets on the butt-naked emperors in our community and the sacred cows that we oftentimes don't talk about in this plantation environment. And then we'll hopefully give an opportunity to raise many questions with Trip, and then of course halfway through the program we'll let the audience participants talk directly to him. So without much further ado, Trip, welcome to Throwing Out Some Heavy Light. And I always start off, Trip, with my guests to say, can you share briefly just a little bit about yourself, and we'll get right into the questions. So Trip Reynolds.
Okay, let me hit something first. Just for general information purposes, I don't consider myself African American. I consider myself Black, and there's a big difference between the two. I noticed years ago when, I was living in Chicago, and I attended the Black Arts Festival, and there was nothing Black about it. It was all African stuff, and absent was information on what I'll call Black arts, like Sammy Davis Jr., Ella Fitzgerald. So it's not that I have something against Africa, but there's a big difference between being African, which is an entire continent, and Black, which is an entirely different persona that is native to particularly our experience here. So that's just one thing. I'm a brat of the Midwest. I'll just put it this way. I was born in St. Louis, the very year, then Lincoln, Nebraska for about 9 years, Lincoln, Nebraska to Wichita, Kansas to Chicago, Chicago to Dallas, Dallas to Denver, and then most recently in the last 10 years or so to Omaha. I could bring up some slides, but I'm not going to do that. But let me just kind of give you an overview. In my experience, I went from early on in my experience attending integrated schools. And then that was in Nebraska and Lincoln. So we're talking the early 60s. Then moving to Kansas, the schools are segregated. And I asked my parents, actually, when my mom and dad, they set us down in the kitchen, and they said, boys, now the school you're going to be going to, which is directly across the street, there aren't any white kids there. And so I said, what happened to the white kids? And my dad said, well, it's segregated. I never heard that term before. And then, so this is 63. Then a year later, we moved to, the Civil Rights Act was passed, 64. And so my parents took us out of the all-black school directly across the street, and they actually drove 3 miles to a white school out in the suburbs and took us there. And an entirely different experience. I'll say proudly but humbly, my grades never changed, but my older and younger brothers, their grades, they just went down the tubes. And I learned some things very early on in my life about how the race card is played, whether intentionally or unintentionally. And I'll end on this note here. When I was in high school, this is after Martin Luther King was assassinated, and supposedly there was a riot at my high school. There really wasn't a riot. What happened was there was a fight that broke out that happened in the lunchroom between a white girl and a black girl. But because it was a white girl and a black girl, some people perceived it was a riot, and it wasn't. And so the assistant principal called the county sheriff to come out. And the county sheriff didn't ask questions, just started beating heads. Now, at lunchtime, most people that were out and about in lunch outside were black students playing basketball.
I have a lot of questions I want to see if I can get to, if we can.
Yeah, but we're gonna get to them. But my point here is this. So I get arrested for defending a black girl from being beaten by the police. And so there were 14 students arrested. Of the 14, I was the only one released. And my dad, when I get out, my dad says to me, Trip, you're the only one out. And you're the only one that's not going back. All the other, your friends, they had black lawyers. I had a white Jewish lawyer. Do you understand?
Okay. Well, I'm going to sit
That's my orientation.
Beg your pardon?
So that's what I'm saying to you. That's my orientation of seasoning about how things have changed. So, but anyway, go to your questions though.
Yeah, I have a rapid list of questions I'm getting. Also, we only have an hour, and so the guests are going to ask you also questions. Yeah. Basically, in the opening part, we talked a little about issues related to narrative about Wakanda and Jewkanda. It's a metaphor, I think, that deals with genocide, oppression, and the past of enslavement of Black folks. Spell out why do you use that term, Jewkanda and Wakanda? What do you mean by that? Because some people, they consider that controversial. And if you could also be brief, so we can move to the next one.
Yeah, I'll be very direct here. A lot of people were so impressed with Black Panther. But unfortunately, people don't want to do the due diligence to find out how Black Panther, the origins of Black Panther, the comic book and everything else. And so in the story, okay, so we have, it's kind of like Romulus and Remus. So in the story, we have, and this was in the film, there's two brothers, and one went to the United States to help during the Civil Rights Movement. His brother said, you can't do this, you need to leave. And so he gets killed in the United States for trying to help Black people exert their freedom. So I want you to think about this now. So we have a situation where the most advanced civilization on the planet, Black people, they have better technology, better weaponry than anybody else. And they had within their means to actually conquer the entire world. But they didn't. Instead, they stayed hidden in some small little Wakanda, right? Now, let's flip the switch. What if during World War II, there was this hidden civilization of Jewish people that had all this technology, and they sat and did nothing while the Holocaust was occurring? Where's that movie? You see the comparison. Where's that movie? Okay, and so despite all the success that the Black Panther film made and the comic book, okay, who really got paid? Did Black people get any of that revenue? No, Disney did. And so it's just the same old thing. I've seen this movie time and time again. Some people don't want to raise attention to it, but that's what I consider a very deceitful way of getting Black people again to go along to get along hey, we paid you for making buffoons of yourself, but we're going to get all the money.
Gotcha. I'm gonna switch up on you. You wrote, I would say, probably a number of months ago, an open letter to the city council, the mayor, and you raised many points related to buffoonery, the Uncle Tomism, the Aunt Jemima behaviors, in a sense. And at one of the city council's meeting, I know that Britt Harding took offense to something that you wrote and read it, I guess, into the records. Did he ever respond to your comments and the merits of what you raised in that correspondence?
No, he did not, and I didn't expect him to. Unfortunately, not unfortunately, here's the deal about everything I write, and it's posted in the editorials I write. I write based on facts. Okay, it's not my opinion. It is a fact that when he was assisting Hal Dub, there was a robust police study that before Hal Dub, during Hal Dub's administration, and afterwards. Okay, and so there would not have been any need for Tristan Bond to do the research she did if they had cleaned up the mess in the first place. It's just that simple. And unfortunately, some people don't want to address that. One of the things about the reason why I write, and I've been doing this for probably about 40 years, and that's posted on my website. I love to write film reviews. Okay, I like to write editorials, but here's the problem. You cannot get mainstream media to give the same attention to Black writers and artists as they do to white artists and writers. So you have a choice. You can either do nothing, or, as Louis Farrakhan has said on numerous occasions, do it yourself. So I don't need to be validated by some white organization, because I can read and write as well as anybody else, and actually better. And the statements that I make, okay, fall under the First Amendment. And again, if someone has a problem with anything that I've said, tell me where the error is, and I'll correct it.
Gotcha.
Nobody's ever done that.
Gotcha. I'm gonna switch up again. You're a former human resource director, and you have extensive knowledge, obviously, on EEOC, affirmative action, and some of the things, so on. And also the report you wrote 2019, where you challenge, I guess, the state, city, and county governments from your perspective, or you challenge some of our institutional thinking about affirmative action, diversity, and so on. Where are we at today from your vantage point? I think you've seen some recent stuff. Where do you think we're at based on your experience?
Okay, so let me be clear. When I said 2019, the data that I present, the research that I present, it's not mine. Anybody can get it. In fact, the US government has been tracking the status of Black people since before, during, and after slavery, okay? And so EEO1s are data that the government compiles on men and women by race, by category. It's been done forever, okay? And so it's, back in the day, a person such as myself, we would call that's how you measure the status of the plantation, okay? So now let me be a little clear. Plantation economics works this way. Historically, the people that worked in senior management, they were always white, typically white men. Your professionals are typically white men. Clerical, that's typically female, okay? Service workers, that could be, now we're getting to where we might find some Blacks. And labor, that's where we're gonna find a lot of Blacks and some whites, okay?
Gotcha.
Corporations could look, they could look at a glance to see exactly where are the people that work for this organization. Now, if people think that things have changed, okay, this is not me saying it. The public and private sector employers in Nebraska said this in the most recent data that in 2019, okay, not one Black person or Native American person or Latino person was hired in any senior level, management level positions. Okay, so who am I talking about? I'm talking about the city of Omaha.
Right.
Okay, don't blame the messenger. Okay.
Right.
That's just the data. Now,
Trip, I want to switch up if I can, because I'm trying to get through some more here.
Yeah.
You wrote a blistering piece about the Empowerment Network, their annual state of report that they do. You also came back, I think, had some other comments and so on. You raised, basically called it a clown show, as some call it, or maybe you didn't call it, but somebody called it that. And also, my point back to you, or my question is, was there any positive things from your vantage point, in spite of your critique of them, that you think came out of that historical or that event that points to some of the empirical data you've shared?
Here's an objective assessment. Some might think that I have some personal vendetta against the Empowerment Network. I don't. Okay. I only look at things in a very linear way. Okay. Instinct versus intellect, emotion versus reason. Okay. And when someone says X and you cannot validate that because they keep moving the goalpost. Okay. The Omaha World Herald is the paper of record for Omaha. Okay. They have published on numerous occasions information on the status of Black people. Okay. As has Gallup and other entities. Okay. And so it's interesting. In fact, it's really disappointing when, in order to make your point, you have to cherry pick. You have to, well, let's look at this data and let's assess it this way. Okay. The NFL, there are 30 teams and they all play by the same rules. Okay. So if the Empowerment Network or the city of Omaha, they want to say that they've done X, Y, and Z. Okay, let's make sure that the litmus test is consistent throughout.
Right.
And therein lies the problem.
Right. I got you. By the way, switching up again, you did a blistering critique of the Omaha Star, and I guess you raised some very valid points about how they can improve. From your vantage points, I suspect you've seen subsequent issues. Have there been an improvement by the publisher or the entities who produce that based on your critique?
Well, it's not, okay. You used the word blistering. I look at it this way. And I've said the same thing, not just about the Star, okay? It's Omaha World Herald. I don't pick favorites, okay? When an entity that, there was a time, let's look at it this way. There was a time when even broadcast media, they would do investigative journalism. They would actually take the time to do research to make sure that your elected officials are doing what they said they're going to do. People like Edward R. Murrow, people like Walter Jacobson in Chicago. Okay, when was the last time that any of the major television networks in town or the Omaha World Herald actually assessed the relationship between the city of Omaha and the Empowerment Network? Why is it always that those individuals in the Empowerment Network, are there no, again, I'm not talking about me, are there no other professional people of color that have expertise in all kinds of things that could benefit the entire citizenry? So right. The Omaha Star is not the issue. The issue is, okay, is its relevancy? And let's be consistent here. The independent of me, it was the North Omaha, some kind of North Omaha organization. They did an assessment of Omaha Star, and they said it was not relevant. Okay, and so how can you be relevant if not? I'm not saying it. My concern about the Omaha Star is that it had data on the website that was anywhere from, gosh, man, 6 months, even a year old. It's not news.
Right.
Okay, that's not news.
But
okay? And I'll end on this one. As I said in my editorial, Black people have every right to expect a certain sense of professionalism, just like white people.
Right. Right. And obviously you look at some of these entities, they don't have it.
Yeah.
You on your website, you have extensive data and information statistics. I know sometimes that's hard to get racial data in apartheid systems for people who hide data. Are there other entities in the Black community or other repository of information that has similar data that you're aware of that people can look at to see how well we're doing or not well we're doing, or how good we're doing?
Well, it's really easy. Aljamal, it's really easy because, this is not a negative assessment of white people or Black people, but we're in an information age, and almost, okay, if you want to find out right now, anyone wants to find out right now, the EO1s for Wichita, Kansas, go to EO.gov, do Kansas.
Equal opportunity numbers data is what you're talking about, racial data.
Yeah, racial data.
Okay.
I mean, but as I mentioned before, you can go Pew Research, Gallup. I mean, there's so many. Gosh, UNO, they do their own independent studies. A lot of organizations, public and private sector, are compiling data and they publish it all the time. Okay, the CDC. Okay, it's an indictment.
So, Trip, my question is everybody local who's doing it? That's what I'm asking. Anybody local that you aware who has similar data?
Well, Gallup is local. UNO is local. They do.
Okay. And they have racial data out there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
In fact, okay. You have to kind of chuckle at this. And the Empowerment Network, they partnered with, I think it's UNO, and their 2019 study. And so, and there's a disclaimer saying that this information is proprietary, cannot be used without prior written consent from the Empowerment Network, or so forth and so on. Well, okay, all right. But here's the deal. Last time I checked, UNO is a public sector entity. Okay.
Right. So they could have to show stuff up. They're using taxpayer dollars. That makes sense.
So you can get that information, like it or not, through the Freedom of Information request. So unless, again, if I'm wrong, tell me.
Well, they're using composite stuff. They're not using people's names and so on. Switching up again, I know that you talk, two things come to mind in our community. The two strongest are known entities to deal with race issues outside of Latino, the Midlands, in terms of South Omaha, is the NAACP and the Urban League. How do they rank in the scope of your work? What kind of collaborations have you done with them? And do you interact with those entities at any level?
No, and let me give you kind of a background here. So I had been in Denver for 16 years, also Dallas and Chicago, and in an HR capacity. So now in HR capacity, that means me working as a manager of employment, a director of HR, VP of HR, okay? And in every instance, and this is Chicago, Dallas, and Denver, because we were an EEO employer, we had to convey that we are being sensitive to EOC requirements, right? That meant working with organizations such as NAACP and also the Urban League. I hated to work with the Urban League because they consistently provide what I consider inept talent, poorly trained talent.
Are you talking about national, another place, or Omaha? I'm lost here.
I'm talking around the U.S. I'm being very specific here. I'm talking about Dallas, Denver, and Chicago.
What about Omaha?
Okay. So when I get to Omaha, okay, this is about 2007 or so, the Urban League position director was open. So I said to my dad, "Hey, Dad, I could probably clean them up because I know exactly why employers, white-owned and controlled employers, don't like to use the Urban League." Because again, I'm the HR guy that hires people, right? Because I know how poorly they're trained, and they're not trained to actually do the work, the actual work that the employer requires. And I'm talking about high-tech environments. Nobody cares about service workers, and no one wants to train people to work. I'm just telling you, they don't want to train. Employers don't want to train. They can put up this facade, but I'm just telling you the real deal. But what happened was someone who did not have any experience whatsoever in actually hiring a diversity of employees. The former police chief, Warren, he got hired. And my dad said to me, well, Trip, you know, his sister's on the board. Okay. And that's what Omaha does. That's what Omaha does. Okay. And so when you look at the Urban League, okay, when you look at the NAACP, particularly in the last 15, 20 years, ask yourself independently, just very objectively, what's changed in terms of the social economic status of Black people? What has changed? What have they actually done? Okay. So don't pick on me. Okay. I'm just asking. Okay. So we elect a Black president. Did the social, the wage gap between Black and white people increase, stay the same, or decrease during Obama's presidency? That's working with the Urban League and NAACP. Did it? What happened?
Well, and those are the questions we should be asking all the time. We got about 5 minutes before we open up to the audience. I'm asking 2 last questions if I can.
But it actually got worse. That's what happened. Okay, now go ahead.
If you had a magic wand in light of your writing, your skill set, who you are, and so on, what do you wish for the African American community? What is it something you think we should be about from your vantage point? Now, if you can be brief, because I want to get you one last before we open up to the audience.
Okay, and my answer is real simple. Integration without ownership means nothing. If you don't own it, integration is pointless. And Black people need to own property. They need to own businesses. Looking to be integrated into white society is ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. That's not, when you look at it historically, okay, every time that occurs, name a huge Black business that was very successful, that ultimately, Motown's not Black owned anymore. Soft Sheen, it's not Black owned anymore. Okay. That's what happens. Integration without ownership means nothing.
Good.
Negro baseball, nothing.
Gotcha.
You gotta own it.
Got you. We're going to open up, but any last comments you want to share before we open up to the participants? Anything else? Anything else you want to share?
No, I'll respond to whatever questions anyone might have.
Good. Folks, we have pretty much at this point, what I do normally is I provide a series of questions and engage the guest rather, on a number of issues. Then we open it up to the audience to see if they have to say. Cynthia, since they asked us to clarify a little bit more, I guess, the meaning of Wakanda and Jewkanda. You alluded to it briefly, but can you give really succinct, sharp why Jewkanda and Wakanda, the contrast, what that really means? A little bit different angle.
Okay. The Black Panther story was created by a Jewish man, Stan Lee. Okay, and right around 1968. Okay, now it wasn't necessarily a parody of the actual Black Panther organization, but it just so happens the character is called the Black Panther. Okay, and the Black Panther represents a technologically advanced society. But this technologically advanced society that has weaponry that's better than any place else in the world, okay? They could have taken over the world. They could have freed Black people from servitude, but they did not, okay? So the correlation is, okay, what if there was a Jewkanda of Jewish people who had all this technological advances, and they could have defeated Hitler. They could have eliminated they could have prevented the Holocaust. But instead of doing that, they just sat by and did nothing.
Got you. I understand. Very clear. Good.
Now, but here's the problem. It's okay to make a movie about Black people shuffling and jiving and wanting to stay out of the white man's world. That's okay. Okay. But it's not okay to make a movie about a hidden Jewish civilization that did nothing and allowed 6 million Jews to die.
Gotcha. I understand what you're saying. There's another comment. I think Ewing raises a point. What are some of the solutions you'd have, I assume, to help the Black community? What are your template for reversing some of the quagmire that you describe in some of your narratives?
Well, I'm going to be very consistent. Integration without ownership means nothing. It just means nothing. Okay, here's a solution. Okay, Omaha Land Bank. There's all this property that's available, and it's primarily in District 2. Okay?
Or North Omaha.
But North Omaha, right? Okay. Here's a novel idea. Why don't Black homeowners in North Omaha form an LLC? Okay, and then use their income as a leveraged buyout to take all that property and then create this huge residential and commercial smorgasbord of property to benefit Black people. Okay, now, wait a minute, that can't be done? Well, wait a minute now. Didn't the city of Omaha to build I-75 right through the heart of North Omaha do eminent domain and did exactly the same thing? And that's what redlining is all about.
Gotcha.
But it's okay. But it's okay for them to do it, but it's not okay for Black people to do it. Okay?
Right.
And I'll add this on. Add this also. When Senator Chambers correctly proposed that OPS be split into 3 separate school districts, because that's actually how it works. That's how, in reality, it is. There's the South Omaha, there's the West Omaha, and there's the North Omaha. Okay, and Julian Bond called my dad, and he asked my dad not to support Senator Chambers because in the move to split up OPS, and my dad said no.
But at the end of the day, the divisions didn't happen. We still got the same plantation dysfunctional educational system. We can't get data from OPS. So it's really kind of a sham today looking at the outcomes. Somebody has another comment here. Dennis Walmart raised the issue about Omaha Star starting to build a museum on behalf of Mildred Brown, but he also raised the issues. We don't really We don't really need a museum. We need manufacturing and jobs and employment. How do you react to something like that?
Well, okay. We need another museum. We don't need another museum. What? I thought there was a Black museum in Omaha. The Midlands. What is the Midlands? I don't know what it's called now.
It's called the Black Museum.
Yeah, the Black Museum. You know. Okay. That's plenty. Okay. What you just observed is a higher protocol. The unemployment rate for Black people in North Omaha has always been higher than the unemployment rate everywhere else in Omaha. So it's, frankly, the focus should be on not show and tell, but productivity.
Right. That makes sense. That makes sense. Other questions, other comments, other feedback. I know we got a number of people here who may want to raise some comments directly. You can speak, open your mic up and talk directly to Trip. He's open to it.
Well, was it Land Bank just hired a Black woman? Race is not the issue. Some people may think that my commentaries are this pro-Black militant kind of thing. No, not at all. Facts are facts. Facts are facts. Okay. You said earlier, Ajamal, about the freedom in the media, being able to that there seems to be an absence of that, telling the truth. When Tariq Al-Amin, when we was at CTI, Tariq Al-Amin came to me and he said, "Trip, can you play this video?" And it was about Robert, Robert, when he was beaten out in front of Creighton.
Wagner, right? I ain't talking about.
Bobby Wagner, yeah.
Right.
And I said, absolutely. Okay. There is a need for that kind of immediacy for Black people.
And we don't have it, obviously.
We don't have it. Okay. And so you asked me a question. So what is the Black News Perspective about? Okay. Well, here's what the blacknewsperspective.com is about. Okay. Cheryl Weston and I created the website for a simple reason: to tell Black news from a Black perspective, to tell news from a Black perspective,
right?
And to do it as promptly as possible. Okay. And so, for example, the thing that's going on now with the 14-year-old being, I don't know what the deal is now. Is it manslaughter? I don't know. But whatever it is, there should be a method for Black people in Omaha to be able to address their concerns as promptly as possible.
In the media.
Okay, in the media. Here's what we know at this point. Okay, and I'm not being negative. I'm saying that there needs to be in the absence of a coordinated effort from the Omaha Star, which I proposed, but they ignored. They didn't want to do it. And some radio entities in Omaha. There could be a vibrancy that was lost when the city of Omaha and Cox Communication shut down community telecasts. Mm-hmm. Okay. And some people said, well, John Heaston said in the Reader, he said, well, it was the family business community telecast. And I told John, it's not a family business at all. Never was. Mm. Here is the specifics about and the reason why Omaha really should be ashamed of itself. So in the United States, typically a community access channel is going to get less than 5% of the cable subscribers' audience. But community telecasts, because we were very robust in our programming, we were getting anywhere from 12 to 22% of Cox's audience. Okay, that's phenomenal. Okay?
So why did they cut it out then?
Well, Tom Mumgard said, well, Trip, you had, people are tired of the programming you had on there.
Who's this Tom guy you talking about, this Mumgard?
Tom Mumgard, Deputy City Attorney.
Got you, so I'm in the city. Okay, so the city had a role in getting rid of the channel.
Absolutely. Okay, so here's the deal. Community telecast, we had no authority who could be on the air, period. We released the time on a first come, first served basis. About 25% of our content was religious. Another 25% was approximately Latino. Another 25% was just all over the board, okay? But we had a program called Senator Ernie Chambers that people didn't like. Certain people didn't like, okay? Now, where it's disappointing is that when, for example, when Lee Terry said to me, Trip, can a white guy have a program on your channel? And I looked, and he was congressman at that point. I said, like, I'm going to tell a white man who's a U.S. congressman that he can't have a program. Come on, man. Okay. And Jim Esch or Susan Smith. Okay.
So in other words, you're open to all these different personalities, but they didn't also reciprocate back to Black folks.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what you want. You want that. Okay. It's unfortunate that the people who ultimately make the decisions, okay, they don't practice the egalitarian principles they preach. And so I go back to the city of Omaha, okay? I go back to Douglas County. I go back
all of these entities are like that. They're racist, they elitist, they lack of participation. By the way, I've said many times, this city's 33% or more, 35 people of color, but you would never know that going to City Hall, county government, state government, so on. I'm gonna switch up real quick and ask you, I saw that Irv Ewing, he raised the issue, it's officially called the Great Plains Black History Museum. I just called it the Black Museum. Yeah. Where we just referred to, but he gave the official title of that, because again, I misspoke and just called it the Black Museum, and it's got a long official title that we need to acknowledge, okay? So we got Ewing.
And so if things have actually changed, I just say this: if things if they've actually changed, why do things still look the same?
Right. Or why do the demographics look like they do? Okay, good. Fair game, fair question. And again, who can answer that? I mean, we got a lot of quiet folks on the set. Other feedback, other reactions. Trip is in the house. Trip Reynolds here throwing out some heavy light. Other feedback.
Some have said that I have a negative viewpoint of religion, particularly, Black ministers and such. I don't. I have a problem with hypocrisy. People will say one thing and do something else.
Wait, the way you said that, are you just saying in a cryptic way that Black religious people or religious folks who are Black are hypocrites? Is that what you're basically saying?
I'll say it again. I have a problem with hypocrisy. I don't care who it is, whether you're Black or white. I have a problem with hypocrisy. Okay. Let's switch gears here for a second. Okay. This is what I mean by hypocrisy. Okay. I want to put your HR. I want you to wear an HR hat. Okay. So if you're at, I'm going to give you an actual example. Okay. This is what I mean by hypocrisy. So I'm HR director. I'm actually VP of HR for a credit union in Denver, and an employee was out of balance. The employee had been warned on numerous occasions. If she or he was out of balance again, they're at risk for being terminated. Okay. The employee was out of balance again. So you know what I did with the employee? Guess. What do you think, Ajima? What I did with the employee?
I'm not sure. I wasn't there. Believe me, I'm not good at guessing.
I'll tell you what I did. I fired the employee for failure to perform. It's that simple. Employee is out of bounds, $3,000. I fired the employee for failure to perform. Okay, it's at-will employment. That's what I did. Okay. Now, I had another employee who said to me, a Black male employee, the employee that Frank, I didn't mean to be white, Black, whatever else. A Black employee said to me, "Hey, Trip, I'm the only one here who has a degree, and they're discriminating against me, and they won't promote me." So I said to this Black male employee, I said, "You're not here to be Black. You're here to be a teller. And as a teller, you are $5,000 out of bounds, and you have a terrible attendance record. So understand me. If there's any merit to your concerns about discrimination, I'll act on those. Make no mistake. But you're not here to be Black. You're here to do the job, and you're not doing the job. So if you come to work late, I'm going to terminate you. If you're out of balance again, I'm going to terminate you. Do you understand me?" Trip, he goes, "Trip, you don't understand." "No, do you understand me?" Okay. Now watch how this relates to John Ewing. So John Ewing was out of balance. That's what it was. Millions and millions and millions of dollars. Okay. Do you really think that an employee working at Walmart or at, I don't care, who's out of balance would be given, well, say the employee, she or he, they mistakenly put the wrong code into the cash register, and that's why the amount was coming up incorrect. Okay. No. Okay. So let's play fair.
I know it's a little bit more to the story just from what I read, but we can come back to it a little bit later. I'm going to switch up. Somebody's got something here. They talked about the land bank was fired. The last one was by unanimous vote. I know we just recently, the woman who was hired working for the Chamber of Commerce, who's African-American, disappeared after 11 months. There was a report about that. Again, she was more of a director of diversity. Again, the news media played that a little bit different. I haven't heard a lot of outcry from the community of color who, again, supported her maybe employment, but you're arguing a different point that someone has to do not with just race, but people have been competent, and we sometimes hide behind race the way you alluded to, instead of just holding ourselves feet to the fire like we do anyone else. But the other people would argue there are many white folks who are incompetent. I saw many of them in county and city government, and again, there are many people I've written to in the public schools who will not respond to my letters of basic grammatical, simple letters that says, this is the question, answer this question, they won't do it. So I'm a little kind of convoluted. I'm going to be careful that we're not picking on Black folks only here.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I agree with you, which is why you'll find in my editorials that I don't play favorites. For example, when Governor Ricketts was preparing this task force for trade, international trade, okay, no one on his task force was a person of color, and he's going to try to do trade in places like Southeast Asia. Okay, well, wait a minute now. Nebraska received a lot of Southeast Asians from during in the 70s from Vietnam. Okay, but and so my guess is that people who still have relatives in Vietnam that are in Nebraska probably have a greater affinity and language skills to talking with someone who is in Southeast Asia.
Right.
But no. Okay, so my criticisms, if you will, of the Chamber's former president CEO is no different than my assessment of Ricketts. I'm real consistent in this regard.
By the way, his head of his economic development is an African American man. He didn't take him along with him. Do you know about that?
Who, Ricketts? Yeah,
he had isn't there an African American guy who's the head of the economic development? I've seen his picture in the Omaha Star. He was in the previous administration, Ricketts, and the new governor just can't continue his employment. So was he on the trip?
Well, here's the deal. Okay. In Ricketts' cabinet, when I wrote my editorial, there was only one person of color on his cabinet. It was a Black woman, and she was over DHHS.
Right, Health and Human Services.
Okay. So
the other person probably wasn't there, is what you just said. Okay, got you.
Yeah. And it's consistent with, unfortunately, in Nebraska, that people of color and women are excluded from the process. Okay. Again, I go back to the EO1s in Nebraska. For all jobs to pay over, public sector jobs to pay over $70,000 a year, 95% of those jobs, the incumbents are white men and women. But of that 95%, 88% are white men. You got that?
Right.
Okay. And so about 11% are white women, which means what? Which means white women are not even considered in the same equitable fashion as white men for jobs that pay over $7,000 a year in Nebraska.
Gotcha.
So again, what I would encourage people to do is, if someone has concerns or questions about anything that I write, do what I do. Just look up the facts.
All right, a rebuttal if they disagree. We got about 10 minutes left in the program. I know the audience has been somewhat quiet. Any feedback, any reactions to something that Trip have said or I've said or whatever, things you want to raise related to this program today?
That I have?
No, I'm saying anybody else. I know we got some people who normally comment, but they're quiet today. I guess they're sitting here listening to you astutely and attentively and all those other things. So I want to give people to weigh in, to pick your brain or to challenge you or to have a little rebuttal if need be, you know?
Here's common sense is an unfortunate reality that people may not want to embrace, but the simplicity of common sense should be used to provide guidance on how to interact in both business and politics, racially. For some people think race should be the dominant issue, and I think it should not be. I think the dominant issue should be one of fairness and equity. For anyone to think that all white people are bad, that all white people are evil, that in itself is evil. That is wrong. That is stupid. There's millions and millions of good white people out there. Okay. What's also true is that historically, when you look at the origins of this nation, the people who ultimately make the final decision, the elite and powerful in almost all aspects, those are all white, typically white men. And they have not practiced the egalitarian principles that they preach. That's the problem. Because there's a lot of good white people who are not industry leaders, who are not business leaders. And they are treated no differently than, in some cases, some Black people. Okay. The efforts that Senator Chambers made to provide some assistance to poor white farmers in Western Nebraska, that's ignored.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It should not be. Okay. It's very, the Republic of Lakota. I had a conversation with Russell Means before he died, and talking about airing some programs on community telecasts for the Republic of Lakota. And he was in agreement with that. Russell Means has, you can find the videos out there. Russell Means, who's a staunch advocate for Native American rights, Russell Means had issues with Black people because Black people, in so many instances, did the same kinds of things to Native Americans that white people did. Mm. Okay. The issue is, I get back to this again. If you're going to say, if you're going to practice, if you're going to be, if you say you're going to be fair and just and embrace equality, then practice what you preach. And my most recent editorial, it's about how to end the war in Ukraine. And what we won't see is people who say that they believe that thou shalt not kill. And I'm talking about Jews and Christians and Muslims. They say thou shalt not kill. Okay? If you really believe that, then get over there and stop the war in Ukraine. Stop the war in Sudan. Stop all these killings, but they won't do that. That's the hypocrisy that I have a problem with.
We're getting down probably about 7 minutes. So there's a couple of comments that came in through the chat. One is that, can you define a little bit more who are the Black elites in Omaha, and are there a few who own the business, lots of properties, whatever their homes, vacation homes, yachts, whatever? But can you pinpoint what you call Black elites?
Yeah, it's not for me to define the Black elites. Okay, the Black elites are defined by white people, and it's always been that way. How do you know? Because when it's either going to be a mayor or a governor or a president of the United States, they have these cattle calls. Okay, and they want to be seen with people they think are movers and shakers in the Black community. And so the picture of Ricketts with Johnny Rogers and so forth and so on. Okay, that's who the Black elite are. White people have identified those people.
Wait, hold on, you lost me. You're saying that we define Black elites by the way white people pick them out? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Okay, got you. Okay, that's a different kind of a concept. Okay. By the way, we only got a few minutes, but does somebody else throw out the point, ask a question? What is your thoughts on the Empowerment Network? You talked a little bit about it, but they came in late and it says it relates to this program. But can you be very, very succinct about what you think of the Empowerment Network in a nutshell?
Because it relates to the Black elite. Okay. The city of Omaha consistently has nurtured relationships with members of the Empowerment Network more than any other group or individuals in Omaha. They therefore are the Black elite.
Okay.
Okay. It's not me saying it, okay? Okay. To whom did the mayor decide to be her chief of staff? Thomas Warren. Okay. To whom is the empowerment? To whom is the city of Omaha embracing as a showcase for improvement in North Omaha and a mover and shaker? The Empowerment Network.
I got your picture. You're very clear. We only got about 5 minutes left. I want to get to the evaluation. By the way, you started something called the Black News Perspective. Really briefly, what is that about? You're doing that. What does that mean, and how can somebody hook up with you on that program?
Simply put, there should be an outlet for Black people to showcase what's good or what's bad or what's ugly. And to do so in a way that's not confined or massaged by mainstream white-owned media. Okay, we have nothing against white-owned media. Okay, and in some cases, it would be a good thing, frankly, to embrace content from external sources, and we would be inclined to do so. But the idea for the Black News Perspective is to show content that, for example, Midland's Business Journal and the Omaha World Herald, okay, they routinely showcase they showcase white men and women that are promoted in jobs, that are creating business, that are increase their market share. Okay. How often do you see a Black person featured in the Midlands Business Journal? Never. Wow.
That's apartheid.
How often do you see the Midlands Business Journal? They have editorials from typically from conservatives, but sometimes liberals. Okay. How often do you see conservative editorials from people of color in Omaha in the Omaha World Herald? You don't. Okay. So my olive branch is simply to this. If there's a 15-year-old kid in Omaha who wants to say something about whatever, send it to me. Okay. Of course, we won't publish anything that violates anybody's copyright. We're not going to put up their pornography or anything like that. We're not going to libel and slander anybody. Okay. But there should be a way for any person of color, really, to be able to say, this is what's good, or this is what's bad, and this is what's really ugly. And that's what we want to do.
Good. Trip, we're down to the last minute or so, but if somebody want to catch up with your contact you, how would they best catch up or contact you, or in terms of your website or whatever, how would they catch up with you?
Well, just use Trip at theblacknewsperspective.com. Very direct. Trip at theblacknewsperspective.com. And at any time, if somebody wants to respond to any of my editorials at trippoetry.com, it's trip.reynolds@yahoo.com. I am not a social advocate. Some may think that I am, but I'm not. What I am is a person who believes in facts. I'm a person who believes in the truth. I'm a person who does not like to see someone maligned when there's clear evidence from multiple sources that that to assail that person is really inappropriate and it's deceitful.
Good. Well, Trip, we're down to the last minute. I really thank you for being on the program today, the feedback you provided, and hopefully we'll get a chance to repeat and talk about some of these issues down the road. But really appreciate you being here today. For our participants today, we have an evaluation form you can fill out. And also we are looking to get people who can provide feedback to some of our survey questions, and we're looking to find people who might volunteer, give us suggestions for future programs. So feel free to catch up with us at some point. Go to our website, and again, let us know if you want to play a little bit more of an active role in the things we do with moving Omaha for race equity in Omaha here. So appreciate you being here today. As we always end our program, may the force be with you, and Baroko.